So like we said, we're kind of faking how we're working with our data here. We've got our classifieds.json file in our data folder, and this produces an array of JSON data that we're picking up here from our controller. And once again, we're making an HTTP GET request for this classifieds data, and we're putting it on scope. So this scope.classifieds bit here is actually an array. And that means that the best way to add new data to it is just to push new items onto this array. So once again, because we don't have an actual backend set up yet, we're just working on the front end. And so a consequence of that for now is that anytime we eventually add new data to our set of classifieds data here, it's going to go away anytime we refresh the page. But later on in the course, we're going to see how we can persist our data to a backend. So just bear that in mind as we put in the create, update, and delete functions for our app. Everything is happening locally right now, but we'll get some persistence going later on. Okay, so the first thing that we've got to do is adjust our form here. And the adjustment that we need to make is we've got to get our input elements to talk to our data model. And so once again, the way that we do that is with the ngModel directive. So with ngModel, what we'll do is assign it to an object. And let's call this object classified. And so naturally, the property on this object that we want to assign this particular input to is going to be title. And in the same way, let's just copy all of this actually. We'll put an ngModel onto our price input and we'll change it to price here. So once again, this ngModel is attaching an object called classified to each of these inputs, and then going down further, it's attaching the particular property, in this case price, to this input. So let's come down here on this text area this time. We will attach our ngModel once again, and this one is called description. And then down here, finally, we will put ngModel is going to be image. And I just want to double check that that's the proper name. Let's see, yeah, image. Okay, so let's save that. Now what we can do to sort of make sure that this is working is we can output our classified object to the screen. And we saw this before when we were talking about filters. So let's come down here and let's put in a pre-tag. And within that pre-tag, let's template out the classified object that we just referenced. And we'll format it as JSON. And so what we'll see now, if we come back and refresh and open up our side nav, is that anytime we type, we get our JSON object populating down below. All right, so that looks like it's happening just fine within this side nav. So what we can do now is actually take that data and push it onto the array of objects that we've already got existing here. And to make that happen, let's go over to our controller. Let's add in a new method on scope called saveClassified. And saveClassified, once again, is going to be equal to a function. And then within here, we describe what we want to happen. And what we'll need is to take the data that's going to be sent from the view and push it onto our classifieds array. Once again, our classifieds array is on scope.classifieds. Now, how do we actually get access to that data though? Well, what we need to do is send it through from the front end. And how we do that is we accept in this function a parameter. Let's just call it classified because we're taking a single classified. And this classified is eventually going to be an object that gets sent from the front end. And so just to see how all of this works, let's go back over to the view right now and add in that method call right away. The save button is the place that we want to add this method call to because when the user clicks here, we want to have that method called. So we'll add an ng-click. And we want saveClassified to be called. All right, so in this case though, we want to actually pass something through when this method is called. And what we want to pass through is this object. And the only thing that we need to do to send it through is just to pass it as an argument. So hopefully that makes sense. Classified as it exists here is an object, and it's got certain properties like image, description, price, and title. And what we're doing is we're sending it through to the saveClassified method. And then in the controller, which receives it right here as a parameter to this function, we're going to access it and push it onto our classifieds array. And so to do that, we just have to call push, and we'll put in classified. And so once again, we're pushing on this classified object that's being passed through. All right, let's save that. We will come over here and save this, and let's give this a shot. So we'll call for a new classified, and we'll say new item, price $1,000. Really cool. And let's just save that now. Let's come down. We'll actually close this so we can get out of here. Let's come down. Here it is. You see it showed up right here. We've got our new item, $1,000. And you'll see there's no image attached to this item right now, but we could easily just put in a link to whichever image we wanted to, and it would populate fine there. Okay, so that's the basic functionality for adding in new classifieds, but there's a couple things that we should clean up. So to start off with, we need to actually check to make sure something has been passed through in the form of a classified before the save method is called. Because if we don't do that, let's take an example here. If we were to say just try to save it like this, if we come down here, we will see that there is an item added that's got no information in it. And so obviously we don't want that. So let's actually put a check in place to make sure we actually get an object coming through. The quick and easy way to do this right now is to just say if there is a classified that comes through, then we will push our new classified onto our scope.classified array. Now this doesn't really deal with any kind of form validation, but right now this is making sure there's at least one property on this object that comes through before it lets us add something to our array. All right, so now the other thing we can do is we can actually clear out the information contained in these fields whenever we actually go ahead and save an item. So right now, for instance, if we were to save this and just click away to check it out, it's there, it's been added. But if we go back to add another one, we'll see that that same information is still existing. So what we need to do to fix that is actually just set whatever is in there, scope.classified, to an empty object. So because this classified object that we have here is on scope, because it's within ng model here, we can access it over here in our controller, again, by using scope. So our scope classified object is going to be made blank whenever we hit that save button. So let's check that out and make sure it works. New item, and we save. Everything gets cleared away, and it's been added down there. Okay, what else now? So we saw that when we added our new item, we didn't get our side nav closing right away. We had to actually close it manually ourselves to go down and see. So to fix that, let's come over here to our controller, and we could just copy whatever we have here with md side nav and calling close on it, but let's actually just use this method itself. So right here within the saveClassified method, we will call scope close sidebar. And so that should now close the sidebar once we add in a new classified. Let's see, new item. If we save that, there it is. It closes, and we've got our item down below. All right, so what else do we have now? If we click our contact button on our existing classifieds, we see we've got some contact information. And that's coming from our data. We've got this contact object, and it's got some properties on it with name and email and phone number. But we don't actually have that in place when we go to add a classified. And the reason for that is that we don't want the user to have to add in their contact details here. That would rather be something that comes from their user profile. So in theory, a user would create a profile after they've signed up for this service, and they would provide some contact details at that point. And then whenever they go to add a new classified in, their contact information would be saved automatically at that point because it already exists in the database from their profile. So we won't try to put a system like that in place right now. Let's just actually kind of fake it out so that we can get a sense for how it works without actually having to build out too much. So over here, I'm going to add in an object, and this is just going to be a local object. Let's call it contact, and we'll make it an object that has a property of name, and let's just put in whatever we want. I'm going to put in my name here. And then we'll do phone, and I'll just do a fake number, and then email. All right, so this object now, we want to kind of attach it to any new classified that gets saved. And so again, we're just assuming that we have a user kind of logged into the system, so we can grab the user's existing contact information and attach it to new classifieds that get saved. And the way that we are going to do this is before we actually push the new classified that gets sent through here onto the array, we will attach this contact object to it. So if we come down here, what we can do is we can just say classified.contact is equal to contact. And contact here is lining up with our contact object here. All right, let's see if that works out. So let's refresh and we'll add in a new item. Let's just fill everything out here. And we'll just leave the image for now. Let's save. We'll come down, and if we click here, we've got our contact information. So once again, this information in reality would come from the user's profile, but we've just faked it out for now. All right, so the last thing we'll put in for now is some kind of message to notify the user that their classified has been saved. And maybe what we can do is use another of Angular Materials features here. I like the toast feature that it has. So let's go down here. Let's check out toast. And the way that toast works is it pops up a little message whenever an event happens. So this is a button that has some kind of event handler attached to it, and it just shows a message there. All right, so let's put that in place. To do so, let's go to the controller, and what we need first is to inject the MD toast service. So we've got MD toast coming in, and let's say that this all happens, we get to the end of this block here. What we'll do is call for a toast to be opened. And the way we do that is with MD toast, we call the show method. We just want a simple toast, so we'll call MD toast simple. And then we actually need to chain on some other methods. The first is going to be content. This is where we actually put in the message. So right now we can just say classified saved. And then what we'll need is a position, and the position in this case, let's do top, and let's put it to the right. All right, and then what we'll do is say that we want some kind of delay before it's hidden, so we'll call hide delay, and let's pass 3,000 milliseconds, which will be 3 seconds. All right, let's see if this works out. Let's go back over here and refresh to test it out. So new classified, and we'll just say new item. Save, and there it is, classified saved. It's coming through just fine. All right, so I think everything's in place for actually adding in new classifieds. The next thing we'll take a look at is how to edit our classifieds.